Good evening. I realized while I was rewatching before I posted it, the last video that I made about self-love, that there was a whole nother piece that I didn't include. That I was like, oh, that needs its own video, or deserves its own video. So here I am. This is Self-Love Part 3. And it's expanding on the same theme that kind of our foundation for how we view and treat other people and how we do relationships. This concept that I actually ran into in a library like 10 years ago, before I knew anything about this. Basically this idea that self-love and love of others are two sides of the same coin. And that's become very apparent as I've done it. So the last one was kind of the theme was, we cannot give what we do not have. And this is more, we can only give in the measure in which we have. So kind of this all begins with when you're a little kid and you're splitting something with like a sibling or a friend, and there's a nifty thing you can do where you have one child cut it in half and the other child pick the first piece to overcome that, like, but that one's bigger, but that one's bigger, no, that one's, I want the bigger one. That whole, like, it has to be equal, everything has to be fair. I realized that that kind of innate sense of fairness is something that all human beings have, and it's part of, it's in the limbic system, so it is a 2 or 3 year old kind of thing. But I realized it doesn't turn off. We deny it. We pretend that it's not happening, but it's totally happening all the time for all of us. It's quite funny. We are the measuring stick. How much we believe we deserve is how much we believe everyone else deserves. On the other side of life, you see older people telling stories about their childhood, and that kind of imply that, oh, well, you have it so easy because I had to do this when I was young. Like, I had it so hard. So, you know, you should have it harder. Like, they're using themselves and their experience as a measuring stick for their children and their grandchildren and everyone else they talk to. And we all do that, but only young people and older people actually admit it. The rest of us just do it covertly. And so I want to give a couple examples of how this plays out and how we can take advantage of this knowledge, because this is something that we can take advantage of. It's just the way we are. It's the way we're wired. It's a subconscious program, so why not program it for the benefit of ourselves and everybody else? So the first thing is to understand that we get to decide how much we deserve. We get to decide how much we believe we deserve in life. And once we decide that we deserve more, all of a sudden we look around and we're like, wait, well then everyone else deserves that much too. It's an automatic process in the back of your mind. It just kind of happens automatically. So I want to give a couple of, this is mostly just going to be concrete examples, because I think that's the best way to demonstrate how this works from my life. One, I realized, and this is so big amongst women, I know this is a huge thing that happens in all women's minds, and some of us admit it, some of us don't, but it's kind of always there going on in the background, that we compare ourselves to other women in the same room, our appearance, our level of beauty, or our bodies and the size and the shape and our clothes and your makeup and the how well did you do XYZ, and I wish I had that, or wow, she looks terrible, or whatever is going on in the back of your mind, or I wish I looked like her. Some sort of tape is usually running in the back of most women's minds when you enter a room that has a lot of other women in it. And that doesn't happen anymore for me, which is amazing. Occasionally I need to redirect for like a second, but pretty much doesn't happen anymore. But that happened because I stopped judging myself based on my own appearance, and I started to say, I love you unconditionally, Christina. On your good days and your bad days, like, you are beautiful. And some days you have days where you don't look so great, and that's okay, because I love you unconditionally. You're allowed to fluctuate and change. You're a human person. You're going to have days where you feel like crap, and it means you're going to look like crap, and that's okay. And you're not competing for anything. Like, you are lovable and loved. And so when I go out and I go to a place where there's a lot of other women, it's like, I appreciate other women, all of them. And, you know, if you see an exceptionally beautiful woman, it's like, wow, she's gorgeous. That's awesome. Like, kudos to her. I love her hair. She did a great job with her makeup. That woman, I have one friend who I always am like, you are so put together. Like, blows my mind every time I see her. And I'm just kind of like shocked at how well she always like just looks so classy and put together. And so I now have a sense of appreciation, but that only happened because I stopped doing it to myself. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm going to stop making all these judgments about other people. Like, there's just, and it feels so much more, I'm so much more relaxed when I go in public now because there's zero judgment. It's just, I'm there and I'm living my life. And most of the time I'm not really aware that I'm in a body. I'm just living, which is fantastic. So that's one example of kind of how that plays out. Another one is temper. Like in the process of self-compassion and having days where I'm much more on edge, I've learned to have compassion for other people when they're on edge. Like realizing, oh, yeah, I know what that feels like. It doesn't feel nice when I'm in that space. And I've practiced stopping and realizing that's not who I want to be, taking some deep breaths, or apologizing to my kids when I unknowingly snap at them. That's usually the time at which it's like, it's time to go practice now. It's time to go do a round or redirect and elevate my mood. It's like always when one of my kids is just like, mommy, and I'm like, yeah, it's like, okay, time to go do something about that. But when I see my husband do that, or somebody's being cranky at the grocery store or wherever, you know, you encounter people kind of being, it's like, oh, I know what that's a human thing. I get it. I understand what that's like. So I have a sense, and it's automatic now, there's a sense of compassion instead of irritation, but it's because I built that into myself. So whenever I felt irritated, I redirected to self-compassion. And so now whenever I see someone else being irritated, I automatically feel compassion for them because I understand they're going, it's automatic now, but it happened because I did it for myself over and repeatedly every day for years. And now it's an automatic reflex. But again, these are just examples of how we can program ourselves through how we treat ourselves is how we treat everyone else. It is an automatic reflex. So we get to set that standard to not take effort when we program it into ourselves first. A couple deeper examples of this are kind of your deeper relationships and friendships. I had an experience with a good friend of mine I've talked about before. And when I met him, I had this very strong intuitive sense that I needed to really respect his boundaries. I was like, I don't know why, but I really feel like I need to make sure that I'm not taking anything from this man, that I'm being very respectful of boundaries and not expecting anything in return. Like, I really just enjoy your company. You don't need to like do anything for me. You don't need to be there for me. Like, I just appreciate any time I get with you, and I appreciate that. And you're free to take your time responding to text messages and so on. And I was just this intuition, and I didn't really know where it came from. But then over time, as I practiced doing that with him, and then I started having other friendships where people were like acting like they owned my time. And if I didn't call them, it was like, not okay. And I was like, no. And I realized, oh, I deserve the same boundaries that I give to my friend who I love very much and very unconditionally. So in that case, I kind of borrowed from, but again, all of this comes back to you're learning from love. Love is what's creating the boundary, whether it's choosing that standard for yourself, or when you already have a relationship where you really love that person and you respect them, you can realize, oh, if I give this much love and respect to this person's boundaries and space, then I deserve that too. And that created what I had already given became my standard for myself. I was like, I deserve that much space and that much respect too. I deserve for people to understand if I'm busy and I can't call them, like, especially if it's a regular everyday occurrence that we talk. It's like, if I miss a day, that's okay. Like, I don't have to text you. If I'm very busy doing something else, I am free to live my life and not notify you that I'm living my life, because I'm living my life. It's my life. You don't deserve to, if it's just, nobody really deserves to know exactly what you're doing all the time or to have that kind of hold on your time. So, obviously, yeah, I'm not going to get into details. That's enough. So that was one area where, in other friendships and relationships where I've needed to give people space and respect what's going on in their hearts and their minds. And I was like, well, I deserve that too. I deserve space, and I deserve to care about what's going on in my heart and my mind and respect my own process. And this is where I finally have come to understand that compromise is actually a really good thing. Like, it tends to have kind of a negative rap in our world, but when you see compromise as a way to honor the authentic heart and process and experience of two people in a relationship of any kind, this is, my marriage is one place this has happened for sure. It's actually incredibly freeing, because ultimately, we only have ourselves. We don't have the rights to anyone but us. Like, we are all we have in this life, us and God and that connection. That's really all we possess. We don't possess anything else. So compromise is a way to honor that for both parties in a relationship. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm actually really grateful for compromise now that I've had that experience of practicing giving someone space and giving someone respect and understanding that I don't understand. And then realizing, oh, I don't have to explain myself to people. I expect people to give me space and expect that I don't have to explain myself. My process is my process, my heart is my heart, and I don't have to explain it to anyone. And there's an incredible amount of freedom in that, because you get to live your life, which is what life is all about. So it's and people, I think people feel very, very loved and respected by that when you give it away as well. Oh, one other example is, again, as I've kind of gone down this path of authenticity, I've come to really appreciate peace and life being pretty chill and just focusing on the joy and the simple things every day. And that can look, because it's not dramatic, it's you purposefully eliminate drama from your life. So it's not interesting in an adrenaline-based way. No longer, like, I've had to tell myself I choose to be a boring person. I'm boring. Things are calm, things are chill. If you ask me what's going well, I'm probably going to tell you that I enjoyed my walk today and had fun with my kids, and I don't know, like really simple, basic things like that. Like, that's, I enjoy my connection with God. That's probably the most important part of my life. That's not dramatic or interesting to a lot of people, but I decided that I care more about my authenticity than anything else, and that's who I am. And if people like that, they can come hang out with me, and if they don't, well, they can go do their own thing. I don't need people who, I just kind of decided to stop caring and do that. And after I did that, I then started noticing my friends who were like that. But it was only once I did it for myself that I started looking at some of my friends, and I was like, wow, I've got some amazing friends who are really just live like a pretty chill life, just doing their thing and being with their families and doing their work and, gardening and making things and creating a beautiful environment for their family, or making art, or, just kind of the ordinary hanging out with friends, going on trips, like just living. And it was like, wow, I really appreciate that. And I began to want to listen to those people more and want to stop talking and give them space and be like, I want to hear your heart more. Because I began to see that, that's where I've been at. And I was like, And I like being there. I like my heart. I think it's a beautiful place to live. And when you see other people who are living in that space, it's like, oh, I'm sure they've got a fascinating world inside of themselves too. Like, I want to hear more about that. You talk. Give me more of that. And so it really changed the way I look at other people when I began to know myself more deeply. And this, again, is kind of the measure, the greater measure to which you know and understand yourself as a person, you then you automatically will honor other people on a deeper level. You'll honor their experiences, you'll honor their hardships, you'll feel their joy and their sorrow and their celebration on a deeper level, which obviously creates a whole lot more opportunity for connection and to be able to love other people. It creates a much higher standard for others. When you make your own standard higher, it makes an automatic higher standard for other people. And this is really far-reaching and powerful consequences. And the beautiful part of it is that once you've programmed your brain that way, it's effortless. And that's, what more could you ask for? That's amazing. So I think that's basically it. It's just kind of, we can only give in the measure that we have. Love, and that love creates our standards. That, understand that you get to decide how much you deserve, and it's your responsibility to go after creating the life that you believe you deserve and inviting. Ultimately, God's the only one who can give us more. He's the only place. He is the source of all abundance. So if we decide we deserve more, it's really just that we're actually opening ourselves to what God wants to give us. That's really it. That's all it means to decide that you deserve more, is I'm willing to let go of all the things that have been getting in the way of receiving more of God. And then you automatically have more of everything else. That whole seek ye first the kingdom of God and everything else comes to you is absolutely 110,000% true. It's the way life works. So, that's it. So I encourage you to examine you know, either examine the thoughts you have about yourself and the judgments you have about yourself, or the thoughts you have about other people and the judgments you have about them, and see where you can use that as a way to kind of expand what do you believe you deserve, what do you believe the standard, like what standard would love create in this scenario, in this scenario, in this scenario, and see the magic unfold in your life. That's all. Much love.